I'm always so flabbergasted when I hear my guests are talking about, yeah, and then there was an ET in my room and looked like an insect or like this. And I'm like, I can't even imagine how that feels like. And I understand that it's terrifying, but like, is that really real? Could you explain the realness of how it feels? Like, is it like a physical being? Is it sort of in a haze? Is it through your third eye? Is it more like of a feeling?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are actually different types of experiences. I've really learned to be able to work with them through the years. So for me, quite often as a child, they would show up in the physical. I had a very real physical experience of them being there,
Wow.
and sometimes they were etheric. But when they showed up in the feeling like 3D, that was what was really terrifying. It's like, oh, who are you? What are you doing here? You know, and to this day, I will get very startled by the 3D beings that do, or they're not 3D beings, but when they show up in a physical form, it still can be quite startling. And so I learned over time how to address them. And so that's one way. I guess I'll go back to your original question. Then I can also, they will come in sometimes as energetic beings. It's more manageable that way, but a lot of times these energetic beings have so much energy that it's like, and this always happens at night. I mean, yes, it has happened during the daytime for me, but quite often that's when we're most receptive, is when we're asleep or half asleep. And so quite often I've been encountered at night by energetic beings, but they have so much energy and it's so intense that sometimes it really freaks me out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to explode, in your energy field because it's so strong. And I had one of those quite recently, although it was really a lovely experience. They can also come in meditation. So they can also come in a conscious way when I sit down to meditate and choose to make connection by asking a question or by having an intention to connect. And then that is much more internal as an experience. So I would say those are like three main categories, and each one of those categories has a spectrum of how they can show up. But what I've learned along the way is how to manage that. And I'll tell you this one story. When I lived in Austin, Texas, it was many, many years ago. I one night had I had 12 inner earth beings show up around my bed, and they were poking me energetically. It felt like I thought in my mind, I was asleep, but I was thrashing around and I thought I had bed bugs because I felt like little needle pricks all over my body. I'm like, what is happening? Am I getting bitten? And what's happening? And then I opened my eyes a little bit, and to see 12 beings around my bed, and they were not ordinary looking beings at all. The closest thing they look like is like E.T., the E.T. from the movie, from the old movie. And like, I mean, not exactly like that, but like they look like they were sculpted out of mud, kind of, except they were alive. And so to see them was like, oh my gosh. And there are 12 of them and they're around my bed. And I was so freaked out. I screamed. I'm like, get out of here. I jumped up. I turned the lights on. I was really freaked out. And so I actually had to get some help the next day from a shaman to help me like figure out what is going on and how do I work with this? Because we didn't speak the same language either. It was clear to me they were just doing that energetic prick thing to try and get my attention. And they were benevolent. They didn't mean me any harm. So, but I was just really startled by them. And so what I what I did is I called excuse me, I had a friend who's a shaman who came over, and he's like, oh yeah, you have a portal in your house right there. That's why these beings are coming in. I always seem to have a portal in my house wherever I live. But he said, I'm like, hey, can I do it like this? He's like, why don't you meditate with them and ask them what they wanted? And I said, okay, Kate, can I do it on my own terms? Here's what I want to do. I want to call in one in meditation to represent all of them. I don't need all of them. And I'm gonna meditate with them that way. And he's like, yep, they're open to that. So he left. I went upstairs in my bedroom, sat in the corner on my meditation cushion and called them. And one of the beings came, and they were actually very, very kind. And we had to communicate in pictures in mental pictures, because they didn't speak English and I didn't speak whatever their language was. But this one sat in front of me in my mind's eye, and yet felt very, very present. I felt the presence very clearly, but not in a physical body. And then this being actually offered me a box, which I took and I opened up, and there was a golden key in this box, and it held a lot of codes that I've pulled that key into my experience many, many times since then, where I've been able to unlock codes with this golden key that was given to me decades ago in this meditation. So it really served me to understand, okay, there's something here. I need to be able to communicate with these beings. I'm not going to do it when they're in 3D. It's too terrifying. So I learned to do that. And then ever since then, if I do have beings show up that are startling to me, I will always go back in meditation and I apologize. Like, I'm sorry, I'm human. I get scared sometimes. I had another one where it was a beautiful, royal, regal being, and I got startled by her, and she really wanted to work with me. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I did that. I misbehaved, really. I just got too in my human mind, and I let it take me out of the presence of you, and called her back. And then she worked with me, and it was lovely. But we can do that. Like, just to know, we can do that. We can go back and call them back in a way and in a form that feels comfortable, and that we can, because I can't open my heart, and I don't know anyone that can, when I'm in fight or flight or having an adrenaline rush, as I often do when these beings show up. So it's also, if you do lucid dreaming, you have to learn to calm yourself. When you realize you're lucid dreaming and you're like, lucid dreaming, I'm so excited, then you'll just end up back in your body, right? You'll come out of the dream. And it's the same when these galactic beings show up. If you get so excited and scream and yell or scared, obviously they're not going to stay, but you can come back to that experience in a more non-physical way through your meditation and your intention to connect and work with them that way. So I'm always refining this process, and the beings that show up are different. So I can't say that there's one way to do it, but you can work with it and learn how to interact in a way that works for everybody.
To watch the full video, click the link below, and I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel.